The lake has always been there, a strange part of our otherwise mundane suburban town. It's not particularly large or impressive, yet it has always been shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Since the 1960s, it's been strictly off-limits to the public. No explanation was given, just a stern order from the federal government that sent our little town into speculation. Of course, the more they kept us away, the more we desired to know. Some claimed that during the Cold War, a secret government project went wrong, contaminating the lake with strange chemicals or some form of radiation. Others believed it was the site of an alien landing, the water supposedly holding some extraterrestrial artifacts. Then there were whispers of a more supernatural nature. Rumors spread about people who disappeared near the lake only to be found days later with no memory of their ordeal. They would mutter about eerie lights under the water and a strange humming sound that made their heads spin. But of course, these were all rumors. No one knew for sure what was going on because the government remained tight-lipped. Armed guards were stationed around the lake, their stern faces showing no emotion, revealing no secrets. The chain-link fence stood as a physical and symbolic barrier between us and the truth. No one dared to question it openly. But the curiosity bubbled in our town. Every night, I would stare at the lake from my bedroom window, my mind swirling with theories, my heart filled with an insatiable curiosity. In the quiet of my room, I find myself drawn to the window once again, eyes fixated on the forbidden stretch of water in the distance. The moon hangs high in the sky, casting a silver glow over the lake, making it appear even more mysterious than usual. My reflection in the glass stares back at me, full of curiosity and apprehension. I've been toying with the idea of going there for years, of trying to uncover its secrets, and tonight, the itch is stronger than ever. I can't help but wonder, why is it so guarded? Why the secrecy? I glance at my clock. It's late, past midnight. My parents are sound asleep, and the town is bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. It's now or never. The anticipation courses through me like electricity. I can't suppress the surge of adrenaline. I make up my mind. I'm going to the lake tonight. I'm going to finally see what's on the other side of that fence. I pull on my jacket, grab my flashlight, and pocket my old Swiss Army knife just in case. With one last look at my reflection, I take a deep breath and climb out of my bedroom window, setting off toward the lake. The walk to the lake is filled with a blend of excitement and fear. It's a cool night, the kind where you can see your breath in the crisp air. As I approach the fence, I feel a mixture of thrill and nervousness. The fence is high, at least 10 feet, with an extra 2 feet of coiled barbed wire at the top. A menacing deterrent for anyone daring enough to try and scale it. There's a sign fastened to the fence declaring, "No trespassing, government property," in bold, ominous letters. Despite its age, the fence still seems solid, almost impenetrable. I begin to walk along the fence line, my flashlight's beam dancing over the rough terrain and cold metal links. The night is quiet, broken only by the rustle of the wind in the trees and my soft footsteps on the dewy grass. Then I see it. It's subtle, barely noticeable if you're not looking for it. It's a hole, torn at the base of the fence, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. A feeling of excitement runs down my spine. Here it is, my ticket to the secrets that lie beyond. The mysterious lake is just a few steps away, its secrets waiting to be revealed. I glance around, assuring myself of the solitude before taking a deep breath and squeezing through the gap. As I emerge on the other side, the reality of my daring act starts to sink in. As I step away from the fence, my heart pounds like a drum in my chest, and the full view of the lake unveils itself before me. The lake, in all its forbidden glory, appears even more mesmerizing up close. The cool breeze sweeps across its surface, creating ripples that distort the moon's reflection. The lake is an almost perfect oval, surrounded by sparse woodland. Its water looks dark and unfathomable, holding secrets beneath its calm surface. A few reeds poke out from the water near the shore, swaying gently in the breeze. I take a moment, standing at the edge of the water, just observing. The moonlight makes the water's surface gleam, like a sheet of black glass adorned with millions of tiny diamonds. The forest around it is quiet. As I approach the water's edge, my sneakers sink slightly into the damp ground. I can hear the distant hooting of an owl, the soft lapping of water against the shore, and the rustle of leaves in the slight wind. I stop just at the edge where the water meets the land, looking out into the mysterious expanse. It's peaceful, and for a moment, I forget about the rumors, the guards, and the fence. Here it's just me and the lake. With a deep breath, I start to take off my shoes and socks, tucking them safely under a nearby bush. The cold air bites at my exposed skin, but it doesn't deter me. With one last look at the moonlit water, I step in. The moment my toes meet the water, a chill runs up my spine. It's colder than I anticipated, but not unbearable. I take a hesitant step forward, then another, feeling the lake's bed beneath my feet, a mixture of soft mud and pebbles. I wade deeper, the water reaching my knees, then my waist. It feels strange, an odd mix of fear and exhilaration, like I'm both invading and being invited into this secret world. The lake is still around me. The only sound is the soft splash of my movements and the distant hum of the nocturnal creatures. I keep going until I'm chest deep, my skin prickling in the cold. With a final glance back at the shore, I take a deep breath and dive under. The world changes instantly. It's colder, quieter, and somehow more peaceful. I kick off from the bottom, breaking the surface with a gasp. But then the unexpected happens. The once calm water around me begins to churn, and suddenly a whirlpool forms seemingly out of nowhere. I can feel the powerful pull tugging at me, dragging me down into its vortex. My heart hammers in my chest as I try to swim against the pull, but it's futile. I try to yell, but the water rushes into my mouth, choking my words. I thrash and flail, trying to keep my head above the water, but the pull is too strong. The last thing I see is the moonlight dancing on the troubled surface of the lake before everything goes black. As I open my eyes, my surroundings seem to swim into focus, and I find myself in a place that is as mesmerizing as it is terrifying. It's a maze of sorts, sprawling and massive, the likes of which I've never seen or even imagined. The ground beneath me is cold and hard, uneven with jagged rocks and pebbles. I run my hand over the surface, feeling the cool dampness seeping into my skin. Above me, the ceiling stretches far up into the darkness, hidden in the shadows. Occasional stalactites hang down, their pointed tips glistening in the faint light. The cavern walls are towering, seemingly extending into infinity, formed of a dark, almost black stone. They're jagged and rough, filled with indentations and crevices that twist and turn, disappearing into the darkness. Here and there, patches of luminescent fungi cling to the walls, casting an otherworldly glow over the surroundings, their soft light reflecting off tiny droplets of water that slowly drip from the ceiling above. The air is cool and damp, carrying the scent of the earth after rainfall and something I can't quite identify. It's a mixture of mineral and something metallic, a distinct smell that's not unpleasant, but strange. The cavern extends into numerous tunnels, each one disappearing into the darkness. The silence is profound, the only sound being the occasional drop of water hitting the floor, creating a faint echo that bounces off the cavernous walls. Stumbling to my feet, I look around and my heart pounds in my chest. This isn't possible. Yet here I am, standing in what appears to be a place of cavernous tunnels, completely alien from anything I've ever seen. "Hello?" I call out. There's no response, just the echo of my own voice bouncing back at me. As I take my first steps into this place, I can't help but wonder if this is the secret that the lake has been hiding all these years. I'm standing at the entrance of a tunnel, its darkness swallowing the weak light offered by the luminescent fungi. My heart is a wild drum in my chest, echoing the rhythm of a primal fear I can't shake off. I glance over my shoulder, back at the tranquil pool of water from which I emerged, a portal from one world to the next. Its surface is smooth, reflecting the dim, otherworldly glow of the surrounding fungi. The image looks distorted, as if viewing reality through a warped lens. A familiar shiver of fear weaves its way up my spine at the sight of it, a daunting reminder of the bridge I've crossed into the unknown. I know I probably shouldn't. but my curiosity is too much to ignore. I have to learn more about this place and see if I can learn where I am. I step into the tunnel, the sound of my footsteps echoing off the ancient rocky walls. The tunnel twists and turns, leading me further away from the water, further into the unknown. The walls close in, the path narrows and then expands again. I stick to the right wall, an old trick I once heard for navigating mazes. I hope that it works here too. The luminescent fungi create a dim blue-green light that stretches out ahead of me, throwing distorted shadows that dance and flicker with my every move. Occasionally, I see movement in the corner of my eye, but when I turn, there's nothing there, just my imagination, my mind trying to fill in the dark blanks. As I walk, my fingertips brush against the rough stone wall, the surface cold and damp. I can feel the texture change under my hand, sometimes smooth, sometimes jagged. Every now and then I pass other pathways branching off from the main tunnel. I glance down each one, their dark depths filled with the promise of the unknown, but I stick to my path. I come across an open area, a cavern larger than any I've seen before. The ceiling is high and arched, covered in countless stalactites. It's like an inverted forest of stone. In the center of the cavern stands a towering stalagmite, rising like a monolith from the ground. The sight takes my breath away, reminding me, despite the terror of the eerie beauty of this alien place. I cross the cavern, my footsteps echoing in the vastness. The ground here is smoother, almost polished. The light from the fungi bounces off the shiny surface, creating a collection of colors that shimmer and shift as I move. Reaching the other side, I find another tunnel leading onward. There's a slight incline, and I find myself climbing upward. The air feels a bit thinner, a bit cooler. The path curves around and I feel a slight breeze, a natural airflow, an indication of an exit, possibly. Suddenly a noise unlike anything I've ever heard before fills the tunnel. It starts off as a low rumble, growing steadily louder until it reverberates through the very shaking the ground beneath my feet. It's a roar, guttural and monstrous, resonating with such force that I can feel it vibrating in my chest. The sound is a terrifying blend of growls and screeches, like the unholy offspring of a lion's roar and the scream of an eagle amplified by the confines of this place. It echoes off the walls, multiplying in strength until it's impossible to discern its source. The noise ricochets around me, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I freeze as my heart pounds against my ribcage. A primal part of my brain screams at me to flee, to escape the monstrous source of the roar. But another, more analytical part of me realizes that any movement, any sound I make, would be a beacon for the creature. I press myself against the cold, damp wall of the tunnel, willing myself to blend into the shadows. My breaths come in short, quiet gasps as I try to steady my nerves. The echoes of the roar eventually fades, replaced once again by the stifling silence. It's a silence that now feels ominous. With my senses on high alert, I strain to pick up any further sounds, any clues as to where the creature might be. But all I hear is the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears, and the soft drip-drip of water somewhere in the distance. I take a moment to steady myself, catch my breath, and reel in my beating heart. My body is flooded with adrenaline, the instinctual fight or flight response kicking into overdrive. I crouch down, with my back pressed against the cold, damp stone of the tunnel. I close my eyes, attempting to slow my racing heartbeat. In the pitch darkness, I tune into my other senses, straining to pick up any sounds beyond my own ragged breathing. Silence. It's all I can hear, but it's no longer comforting. The silence now carries a threat, a potential prelude to another terrifying roar, or the stealthy approach of a predatory creature. I take a deep breath, and then another. Slowly, the frenzy in my veins subsides. I can think clearly again. I'm in a dangerous place, yes, but panic won't help me. Taking one final glance towards the way I came, I push off from the wall, deciding to venture deeper into the labyrinth. My steps are measured and careful, my bare feet making little sound against the stone floor. Each intersection I come across, I choose my path based on intuition, always veering right when in doubt. I keep my hand trailing along the wall, feeling the rough surface beneath my fingertips. It gives me a strange sense of comfort. A tangible connection to my surroundings, but every so often, my hand would brush against a slick patch of wall, and I'd jerk away, startled by the icy cold touch of what I realize is the same luminescent fungi illuminating the maze. While the luminosity is meager, it's enough for me to make out the path before me. The light casts eerie shifting shadows that seem to dance and dart with my every move. My eyes continuously scan the path ahead, the flickering light playing tricks on my vision. I'm on high alert, every creak echoing like a gunshot, every drop of water falling from the cavern's ceiling sounds like a hammer against an anvil. As I push deeper, the tunnels begin to change. They grow narrower and more winding. The luminous fungi become less frequent, their soft glow barely enough to illuminate the path a few feet ahead. I feel a wave of claustrophobia sweeps over me, but I shove it down. I can't afford to panic now. My senses are on high alert, straining to pick up any sign of the monster that roared earlier. But apart from my own breathing and the beat of my heart, there is no other sound. Suddenly, a different sound slices through the silence, the unmistakable rustling of something large moving through the tunnels. My heart leaps into my throat. I freeze mid-step and start listening. It's distant but getting closer. I realize I need to find a place to hide. Glancing around, I notice a small crevice in the wall to my right. It's barely large enough to fit into, but it's my only chance. I squeeze myself into the narrow space, and my heart pounds as the sounds draw nearer. As I press my back into the cool, damp stone, I hold my breath, trying to silence the loud thumps of my heart. The rustling grows louder and closer, and then I feel it. A vibration in the ground beneath me, a low hum in the air. The monster is near. I can hear its heavy breathing now, a deep sound that sends shivers down my spine. The air shifts as it passes by my hiding spot, carrying a musky, metallic scent. I close my eyes, praying it doesn't detect me. Just as abruptly as they started, the sounds fade. I wait, counting 100 heartbeats before daring to breathe again. As I slowly uncurl from the crevice, my entire body trembles. I realize that I'm not just trapped in this parallel world. I'm also being hunted. The smell of the monster still lingers in the air, a harsh reminder of the proximity of my predator. Every instinct screams at me to keep moving, so I force my trembling legs forward. As I journey deeper into the labyrinth, I pay close attention to the echo of my footsteps, the way sound seems to bounce off the walls, and how the tunnels distort and amplify it. I start to experiment, tapping on the stone walls and listening to the echoes. That's when I start to notice patterns. Certain tunnels carry the echoes further. Others seem to absorb the sound. I begin to discern the faintest differences in the way my taps echo back to me. I manage to navigate this place more confidently, avoiding paths where my sounds echo loudly. Hours turn into days, or maybe it's the other way around. The concept of time becomes meaningless here. With each passing moment, I become more attuned to this place and understand it better. The tunnel I'm currently navigating is wider than most, the luminescent fungi casting in that lights up the stone walls in an eerie dance of shadows and lights. My bare feet crunch on the gravel beneath me as I move, the echoes bouncing around and filling the silence. Each step is methodical, and each breath is measured. My senses are attuned to the labyrinth, to the unique sounds that are my only means of navigation in this world. As I trace my fingers along the wall, I notice a change in the texture. It's smoother here, almost polished. I stop and squint in the dim light. There's a small alcove in the wall, something I haven't encountered in the labyrinth so far. Nestled within it is an object, unlike anything I've seen before. It's a relic. Its surface is smooth and oddly warm to the touch. A faint purring hum seems to emanate from within it. I crouch down to examine it, and the sound of my movement reverberates around the tunnel. I extend a hand, my fingers brushing the surface of the relic. It vibrates under my touch, the hum growing louder, the surface of the relic lighting up with a faint pulsating glow. It's responding to me, I realize. With a sudden burst of courage, I grasp the relic firmly in my hand, An intense sonic boom bursts from it, echoing off the tunnel walls and reverberating through the maze. I stumble backward. Startled by the intensity of the sound, my ears start to ring in the sudden silence that follows. As the ringing subsides, I look down at the relic in my hand. This could be a weapon, I realize, a way to disorient the creature. I pocket the relic carefully and press on. With the relic now in my possession, I proceed through the labyrinth with newfound determination. Each sound now feels less like a threat and more like a tool I can potentially exploit. I decide to start experimenting with the way it responds to touch and pressure. I find myself stationed at a junction of 3 tunnels, the best place to test it. The relic feels alive in my hand, pulsating with a rhythmic hum that seems to sync with the beating of my heart. I hold it tightly, its strange warm texture contrasting with the cold stone around me. My first test is simple. I press my thumb into one of the relic's engraved markings. The hum intensifies and I quickly pull back my hand. The abrupt increase in noise catches me off guard. The sound bounces around the tunnels, an echo that twists and turns around the corners before fading into the all-encompassing silence. My heart beats hard against my chest as I wait for a response from the monster, but it never comes. I exhale slowly, easing the tension out of my shoulders. The noise from the relic isn't necessarily a beacon for the beast, but a tool I can use. Emboldened by the first test, I try again. This time pressing on 2 markings simultaneously. The relic responds instantly, its humming escalating into a vibrant drone that fills the tunnel and sets my ears ringing. This pattern continues as I experiment with different combinations of the engravings. Each combination leads to a different sound, a unique sonic signature. Some are high and piercing, others low and resonating. Some travel far, their echoes filling the tunnels, while others are quickly absorbed by the stone. I learn to modulate the intensity of the sounds to produce soft hums and overwhelming sonic booms. And with each boom I feel a faint but discernible pulse of energy, a ripple in the fabric of this world. I activate the relic again, causing a sonic boom, louder and more intense than any I've created before. Suddenly a shimmering tear appears in the air in front of me, a swirl of colors I've never seen. It's a portal, I realize. A potential way back home. But the moment is fleeting. The portal flickers and fades, leaving me staring at an empty space. Despite the portal's brief appearance, its existence confirms my suspicion. The relic is not just a weapon. It's a key. A key that might get me out of this nightmare and back to my own world. Now I have a clearer goal. I need to learn to control this portal to manipulate the relic to get me home. I'm navigating a narrower tunnel when I hear it. A low, deep growl. It echoes around me, the sound amplified by the confined space. The hair on the back of my neck stands up, and I freeze in my tracks with the relic clutched tightly in my hand. The growl turns into a roar, a terrifying resonant sound that seems to shake the very walls of the tunnel. The air grows heavy with tension as the creature draws closer. I can hear its heavy footsteps, the scraping of its claws against the stone and the ragged sound of its breathing. Fear rises in my chest, threatening to choke me, but I force it down, remembering the relic in my hand. I press down on the engravings, and the relic responds immediately, emitting a sonic boom. The sound reverberates through the tunnel, the intense noise distorting the air around me. My ears ring in the aftermath, but I don't have time to recover. I turn and run, my footfalls echoing behind me. I can hear the beast's confusion, its roars growing more desperate as the echo of the boom disorients it, but I know the effect won't last long. I need to put as much distance as I can between it and me. As I run, I trigger another sonic boom, further disorienting the creature. The adrenaline wanes as the roars grow distant, and I find a safe spot to rest. Suddenly, a growl reverberates through the tunnels, but it's closer now. I grip the relic tightly and my knuckles turn white. The roars grow louder and more desperate, and I know the beast is closing in. I press down on the engravings, but my trembling fingers fumble. Then I see it. Emerging from the shadows of the tunnel, the creature is a monstrous embodiment of every childhood nightmare, a horrifying entity that has lurked in the recesses of my imagination. Its body is massive, towering over me like a monstrous gargoyle sprung to life. I'd guess it to be at least 15 feet tall. Its skin is made of slate-gray scales,
a spotted pattern that shimmers eerily under the glow of the luminescent fungi, giving the creature an armored look. Its eyes are a chilling bright yellow, glowing like bioluminescent orbs in the dark tunnels. They burn with a fierce predatory hunger that sends chills down my spine. They're set deep within its skull. Beneath those eyes, a mouth yawns wide, lined with rows upon rows of jagged razor-sharp teeth. The teeth are like shards of obsidian glistening in the dim light.
They're stained a dark red. The creature's claws are just as terrifying, long and sharp, each one resembling a deadly scythe. They're smeared with a dark substance that I don't want to identify. But what truly marks the beast as a creature of nightmares is its ears. They're large and bat-like and move rhythmically, constantly adjusting and moving, perfectly attuned to the sounds of the maze. It's these ears that make the creature the lethal hunter it is, able to navigate through the echoing maze with an uncanny precision. A roar rumbles from deep within its throat, deafening and terrifying. But I stand my ground, my fingers finally finding the right engravings on the relic. The sonic boom erupts around us. But this time the creature is ready. It lunges at me, its massive form moving with a speed that defies its size. I dive to the side, but I'm not quick enough. A sharp pain rips through my side as the creature's claw slashes across my body. I cry out in pain, the sound swallowed by the echoing roar of the beast. Despite the pain, I roll away, narrowly avoiding another swipe of the creature's claws. I clutch my side, feeling the warmth of my blood seeping through my fingers. I need to get away. I need to fight back. I press down hard on the relic, forcing a deafening sonic boom to erupt from it. The creature roars in pain, its ears ringing from the noise. It recoils, covering its ears, and I use this opportunity to escape. I stumble through the tunnels, the pain in my side making it difficult to move. The labyrinth seems to spin around me, and it feels as if the walls are closing in. But I keep moving. I find a narrow alcove and collapse inside, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence is a harsh contrast to the thunderous roars that still echo in my ears. Then a low growl echoes through the tunnel, followed by the chilling scrape of claws against the stone. My heart freezes. The creature is closer now, its roars reverberating off the stone walls of the labyrinth. I squeeze my eyes shut, praying it hasn't heard me, hasn't smelled my fear, but my prayers go unanswered. With a roar that fills the alcove, the creature lunges into my hiding place, its monstrous form blocking out the little light there is. I react instinctively, my fingers pressing down hard on the relic's engravings. A sonic boom explodes from the relic, the sound waves crashing against the creature and bouncing off the walls. The creature reels back, its ears twitching wildly, as it struggles to locate me amidst the disorienting echoes. But it recovers quickly. With a swift, furious swipe of its claw, it lunges for me. I roll away, narrowly avoiding the deadly claws. But the creature is relentless. It lunges again, with its roars filling the alcove. With my heart in my throat, I press down hard on the relic, triggering another sonic boom. The sound wave rips through the alcove, the echoes thundering off the walls. The creature roars in pain, its large ears bleeding from the assault of sound. As I scramble to put distance between myself and the creature, I risk a glance back, my breath catching in my throat. The creature writhes on the ground, its monstrous form convulsing as it tries to recover from the sound. I'm about to turn away when I catch sight of something behind me. It's a swirling mass of color and light, a portal that's appeared seemingly out of nowhere. I can hardly believe my eyes. Could it be my way out? A way back home? I pull my gaze away from the creature, my eyes wide as I stare at the portal. It pulses with energy, the colors shifting and swirling like a psychedelic whirlpool. Taking a deep breath, I steel myself and step towards the portal. It pulses, almost as if it senses my approach. The colors swirl faster and the light grows brighter. As I approach, the air around the portal crackles with energy, raising the hairs on my skin. It's like stepping into a field of static electricity. With one last look back, at the monstrous creature writhing in pain, I step into the portal. The world shifts around me. It's like diving into a deep pool of water. The world suddenly blurring around me. I feel a sense of vertigo. My stomach jumps as if I'm falling.
The colors of the portal swirl around me, faster and faster, blinding me with their intensity. I close my eyes, feeling disoriented. I feel like I'm being stretched, pulled apart, and put back together again. It's an indescribable sensation, a mixture of pain and exhilaration. Then just as suddenly as it began, it ends. The sensation of falling stops. The colors fade from behind my closed eyelids. I feel solid ground beneath my feet once more. I open my eyes, blinking against the sudden change in light. As I open my eyes, the first thing I notice is the darkness of the night sky dotted with familiar constellations. The moon casts its silver light across the landscape,
bathing everything in an ethereal glow. The stars twinkle overhead. It's a sight I never thought I'd see again. Next, my eyes fall on the lake. The surface is calm and peaceful, mirroring the starry sky above. It's hard to believe that this serene body of water was my doorway to a horrifying world of nightmares. It looks so ordinary, so harmless. The night is alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. Crickets chirp in the grass and an owl hoots from somewhere in the distance. The rustle of leaves in the breeze is a soothing sound. Looking around, I see the tall fence that encloses the lake, the barbed wire glinting in the moonlight. The hole I'd slipped through is still there. The guarded mystery of this place now holds a different meaning to me. I feel the cool grass under my bare feet and the fresh air filling my lungs. Every sensation is a sweet reminder. I'm home. In the distance, I see the lights of my town, and further off, I see the glow from my bedroom window. As I stand there, taking it all in, relief washes over me. I've made it back. I survived. And with that realization, I can't help but feel a sense of overwhelming gratitude. My body feels heavy. The adrenaline that has been my fuel in that strange place is starting to recede, leaving in its wake a profound exhaustion. The injuries from the creature's attack throb with a delayed intensity. My muscles ache from exertion, but it's a good kind of pain. It's the pain of survival. With wobbly legs, I start to make my way back home. As I walk, the sounds of the night form a comforting melody around me. When I reach my house, I pause and glance up at my window. I then look back at the lake one last time, the still water reflecting the starlight. It seems so peaceful, so ordinary. Yet I know the truth. I know the nightmare that waits beneath its surface. Entering my house, I quietly climb the stairs to my room, not wanting to wake my parents. The familiar sights and smells of home wash over me, providing a soothing feeling to my nerves. My bed is inviting. The soft sheets are a contrast to the harsh reality of the maze. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the events of the night replay in my mind. The roaring creature, the echoing maze, the pulsing relic. It all seems so surreal, so distant, yet I know it was real. The pain in my body and the lingering fear in my mind are all reminders of the terrifying ordeal I've been through. But I've also emerged stronger and more resilient. I've faced my fears, outsmarted a monster, and survived a nightmare. And for that, I'm grateful. Finally, exhaustion pulls me into a deep, dreamless sleep, and the echoing roars of the creature fade into a distant memory. The morning sun peeks through the cracks of my blinds, painting stripes of golden light across my room. I blink, squinting against the sudden brightness. It's a new day. A day I wasn't sure I would see again. I look around my room, the familiar surroundings holding a newfound comfort. The posters on the wall, the pile of books on the shelf, even the worn-out rug under my bed. They all seem more vivid and more real. I push back the sheets and gingerly swing my legs over the side of the bed, grimacing at the pain from the creature's attack. I make my way to the window, drawing back the blinds to reveal the lake in all its morning glory. The water is calm, reflecting the sky's pastel hues. It's a picture of serenity, defying the terror that lies beneath its surface. I know I will never look at that lake the same way again. It's no longer just a guarded mystery, a source of town rumors. It's a doorway to a nightmarish world, a world I hope I never see again. I'm walking down the street, the sun casting long shadows as it starts to set. Ahead of me, I notice an abandoned building that seems out of place, like a relic from a different era. The exterior is weathered, with cracked paint and boarded-up windows. Vines crawl up the walls as if trying to reclaim the space. Despite its worn appearance, there's something about it that piques my curiosity. I pause. I glance around and decide to go in for a closer look. Pushing open the creaky door, I step inside. The first thing that hits me is the smell. A musty mix of damp wood and old books. The interior is dark, lit only by the dying sunlight that filters through gaps in the boarded-up windows. The floor is covered in a layer of dust and debris, and I see remnants of its past life. A broken chair, a tattered rug, and shards of glass from a shattered mirror. The walls are peeling, revealing multiple layers of wallpaper from various decades. As I make my way through the building, each room and corridor seems to mirror the last, run down, full of discarded items, and deteriorating from years of neglect. Old torn curtains hang on rusted rods barely clinging to their last threads. I reach the end of a long, dim hallway and find it. The door. This door is different from the others I've seen in the building. For starters, it's intact. The wood seems smoother, almost polished, and the doorknob gleams as if recently cleaned. Unlike the rest of the building, which feels stuck in a perpetual state of decline, this door seems oddly preserved, as if immune to the passage of time. Even the air around it feels different, like a pocket of calm in a storm of decay. I'm inexplicably drawn to it, my curiosity overpowering any sense of caution I might have felt earlier. I reach for the gleaming doorknob, turn it, and step inside. The door closes softly behind me, and when I turn around, it's gone. Panic rises in my chest as I realize there's no way out. I reach out and touch the solid wall where the door used to be, almost willing it to transform back into an exit, but it remains a wall. Trapped, I look around to assess my surroundings. The room is plain, resembling an office building. The carpet underfoot is a dull gray, showing signs of wear but not enough to indicate high foot traffic. The walls are a sterile white, completely featureless, without even the usual scuffs or marks you'd expect. Fluorescent lights buzz softly, casting a cold and even light that gives no comfort. There's an odd quality to the air, like the room is holding its breath along with me. Knowing that standing still isn't an option, I resolve to explore. My footsteps are muffled by the carpet as I cross to the other side of the room. There I find another door, identical to the one I initially entered, or at least I think it was identical. The handle is cool to the touch, and it turns easily. I step through into another room and find it's a perfect copy of the first. The same gray carpet, the same unblemished white walls, and the same indifferent fluorescent lights above. Remembering the piece of chalk in my pocket, I take it out and mark the wall next to the door I've just come through. A white X stands out clearly against the stark wall. Satisfied, I move to the next room. It's the same as the first two. The similarity is unnerving. I keep going, room after room, each indistinguishable from the last. When I finally decide to backtrack, thinking I'll return to the room where I made the chalk mark, I find that the mark is gone. The rooms are not just similar. They are shifting, rearranging themselves as I move through them. A sinking feeling of dread settles over me, more intense than anything I've felt before. Changing my approach, I decide to keep my hand in constant contact with the wall to my right, attempting to navigate this place like a traditional maze. As I move, I can't shake the feeling that hours are passing, although there's no way to tell for sure since there are no windows or clocks. The artificial fluorescent lights overhead make it impossible to distinguish between what might be day or night. The walls alongside me are unchanging in their plainness, offering no clues or variations that might indicate I'm getting closer to an exit. As I keep walking, it's increasingly hard to keep track of time. The concept of hours or days starts to lose meaning. The sterile light from the fluorescent tubes above washes over everything, rendering the dull carpet and the blank walls even more lifeless. These lights hum softly, adding to the disorientation. The sameness of each room messes with my sense of reality. Is time even passing in this place, or is it standing still? Each step feels heavy,
as if the very air in the room is thickening, making it harder to move. My footsteps on the carpet sound muffled, as though the floor is absorbing not just the sound, but also my energy. I can't shake off the feeling that these walls, devoid of any features, are closing in on me, even though they stay in place. But just when I think things can't get any more disturbing, a new realization hits me. I'm not alone. Initially, I hear what sounds like faint footsteps echoing behind me. My first thought is that it's my mind playing tricks on me, a manifestation of the isolation and fear I'm feeling. But then I hear it again, clearer and unmistakably closer this time. There's a pattern to it, a deliberate pacing that indicates something or someone is indeed in here with me. It's stalking me, maintaining a constant distance that feels both near and endlessly far away. Panic mixes with my previous dread, and I quicken my pace, my hand still skimming the surface of the wall beside me. Despite my increasing speed, the footsteps behind me seem to adapt, maintaining their hauntingly consistent one-room-away distance. It's as if whatever is following me understands that I'm searching desperately for an exit and is determined to keep pace, to remain just out of sight but ever present in my awareness.
This adds a new level of urgency to my already desperate situation. I realize that finding an exit is no longer just about escape. It's also a race against whatever is trailing me in this endless place. Each time I stop to turn around and investigate, I see nothing. The room behind me is as vacant and uniform as the one I'm standing in. However, the moment I move forward, the footsteps pick up right where they left off. They seem calculated, keeping just enough distance to evade my line of sight no matter how fast or slow I go. In a frantic effort to put space between me and the unknown entity, I start running. The sound of my shoes pounding against the carpet fills the room, momentarily overshadowing the footsteps. I race from one door to the next, crossing through each doorway with the hope of finally losing whatever is stalking me. But it always keeps its pace and is close behind. Fear has become my sole focus, drowning out any other emotions or rational thoughts. It's like a relentless itch pushing me to increase my pace and compelling me to find a way out of this labyrinth of confusion. But the faster I move, the quicker the footsteps seem to adjust, staying just out of sight but certainly not out of mind. The entity behind me is closing the gap, making its presence felt through the incessant noise of its steps. Suddenly I come across a door that looks different from the others. It's not a usual wooden office door, it's a metal one like you'd see used as an exit door. Could this be the exit I've been so desperately looking for? As I step through the next door, I'm met with a vast, expansive space that stretches out so far I can't see the opposite wall. A thick fog hovers in the air, limiting my visibility even further. The atmosphere is heavier here, but it offers a weird sense of relief. At least it's a change from the monotonous claustrophobic chambers I've been trapped in. The carpet underfoot transitions to what feels like hard, cold concrete. As I walk further into the space, the fog seems to grow denser, enveloping me in a misty shroud. I squint, attempting to see through the haze, but it's almost like walking through a cloud. My footsteps sound different here, the sound dispersing into the fog as if swallowed by the void. I continue to tread carefully, not knowing what could be concealed in the dense fog. My mind races with the possibilities. Could this space hold the key to escaping the maze? Is it a trap set by whatever entity is stalking me? I can't even see a wall or door to mark an exit. It feels like I've stepped into an entirely different world. As I walk, I notice something. The footsteps that have been haunting me are absent. The encompassing fog seems to have dampened the acoustics of the room, or perhaps the entity is as disoriented by this space as I am. The silence is unsettling, but also provides a momentary respite from the constant stress of being pursued. Eventually, I reach what appears to be the center of the room, though it's hard to tell with the fog obscuring almost everything. I pause for a moment, pondering my next move. The absence of walls, the lack of visual cues, and the sheer size of this room make it hard to decide what to do next. I feel a strange mixture of hope and despair. This room is both an escape from the suffocating chambers I've been in,
and yet another bewildering obstacle to overcome. After taking a deep breath, I decide to keep moving forward, hoping to find some clue or feature that might help me make sense of this vast room. Each step feels like a leap of faith in this fog-drenched void. As I walk, I start to notice that the fog is gradually lifting, almost as if it's reacting to my movement through the room. Just when I think I'm getting closer to an exit, or perhaps another door, I hear it, a low guttural growl echoing through the fog. It's different from the footsteps that have been trailing me, but it's just as unsettling. My heart pounds in my chest, the fear surges back, and I realize that this room might hold dangers far worse than the entity that's been stalking me. In a state of heightened alert, I scan my surroundings as best as I can, but the fog still hampers my visibility. Every sound now makes me jump. The distant drip of water, and even the sound of my own breathing. Then, without warning, the fog lifts completely, revealing a door at the far end of the room. With renewed urgency, I sprint toward the door. My legs pump as fast as they can across the hard concrete floor. No growls, no footsteps, just the echo of my own frantic dash. I reach the door.
I twist the knob and step through, finding myself back in one of the identical confining rooms. Although I've escaped the vast fog-filled room, the realization sinks in. I'm still trapped in this endless maze, and now I know it can morph into new, terrifying configurations. Despite this, I press on, fueled by a mix of fear and a sliver of hope that there must be a way out. But as I step into the next room, the familiar sound of footsteps resumes, reminding me that I'm not alone. Enough is enough. Determined to devise a strategy, I start by taking inventory of what I have on hand. Rummaging through my pockets, I find a pen and a few gum wrappers. It's a sparse assortment, but it's all I've got. I take the pen and begin drawing small, distinct symbols on the walls. The pen's ink contrasts well against the plain walls. For areas where the pen's ink refuses to adhere, I use the gum wrappers. I press them firmly against the wall, making sure they stick. At first, my plan appears to work. The maze still shifts around me, but the rooms I enter are devoid of my symbols, indicating new territory. It's a small win, but it lifts my spirits. For the first time since this ordeal began, I feel like I'm making tangible progress. The footsteps behind me continue, but the new strategy pushes them to the back of my mind. I'm too focused on navigating through unmarked rooms to pay them much attention. However, this sense of accomplishment doesn't last long. Soon I start to notice something disheartening. The pen marks are fading, much faster than ink should under normal circumstances. Even worse, the gum wrappers I'd adhered to the walls are missing. I double back to a room I'm sure I marked, and it's as if I was never there. The walls are as bare as all the others. My heart sinks as another realization hits me. Some of the symbols are not where I left them. I find one of my marks on a wall to my right when I'm certain I'd drawn it on the wall to my left. It's as if the entity or this place itself is mocking me. This change is more than disheartening. It feels like whatever is stalking me is becoming bolder, less content to remain a subtle, unseen threat. The footsteps seem louder, and there's a new weight in the air, a heaviness that wasn't there before. It's as if the entity is taunting me, daring me to try and outwit it again. And despite the fear and the mental exhaustion, that's exactly what I intend to do. The subtlety is gone. The entity following me now makes its presence blatantly known. The footsteps are not just faint echoes. They're clear, calculated sounds that seem almost deliberate in their pacing. Along with the footsteps, cold breezes sporadically gust through the room. Each gust makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand on their ends and fills the air with a noticeable heaviness. It's as though the room is acting like a sponge, soaking up my emotional state of fear and exhaustion, making it increasingly difficult for me to focus. Physically and mentally sapped, I sit down on the plain gray carpet that covers the floor of this seemingly endless maze of rooms. I try to gather my thoughts, but the oppressive atmosphere in the room is like an additional weight on my shoulders. The footsteps are louder now, no longer a distant threat, but an imminent one. It's as if the entity knows I'm on the edge, but the prospect of giving in to this malevolent force hardens my resolve. I force myself back to my feet, taking a deep, steadying breath to clear the haze clouding my thoughts. The marking strategy is a proven failure, so there's no point in clinging to it any longer. A new plan starts to form in my mind. Instead of running from the entity, perhaps I can use its predictable following nature against it. Listening intently to the footsteps, I try to determine their direction and distance relative to my position. Every sound, every echo offers a clue. My aim is risky. I plan to lead this entity into a trap, a room where I can finally confront it, or perhaps find a way to escape. With my senses heightened, despite the draining atmosphere, I start to move again. This time, however, my steps are not those of a lost wanderer, but of someone with a plan. Each move is calculated, each choice weighed with all the caution and foresight my weary mind can muster. The entity is adapting, but so am I. I continue through the maze, my senses dialed in on the footsteps behind me. They are consistent, but I notice a slight pause every time I change direction. It's as if the entity is recalibrating, adjusting its path to continue its pursuit. This gives me an idea. I start to zigzag through the rooms, making abrupt turns in hopes of confusing it or at least slowing it down. I listen carefully after each turn. The footsteps pause, resume, and then pause again. My strategy is having an effect. Suddenly, I find a room that is slightly different from the others. The walls here are a shade darker, and there's a small recess in one of them, just large enough for a person to fit. It's the closest thing to cover I've found in this place. This is my chance. I quickly step into the recess and hold my breath. Minutes stretch out like hours as I stand there, partially concealed, listening intently. The footsteps grow louder and closer and then enter the room. The air turns icy cold. I can sense the entity in the room with me, searching, scanning. My muscles are tense, ready to spring into action. I wait for the footsteps to move away slightly, indicating that the entity is on the far side of the room. It's now or never. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled speed, I dart out of the recess and sprint across the room, putting as much distance as I can between myself and the entity. The footsteps falter, caught off guard, and then I hear them scramble to give chase. I don't dare look back. I dash through the next door and slam it shut behind me. For the first time, I feel like I've gained the upper hand. The footsteps are more distant now. My sudden move has thrown the entity off. I'm mentally and emotionally drained, almost succumbing to a crushing sense of despair. My mind swirls with doubt. Is this place my eternal reality? Do I even exist as a complete person anymore? Or am I reduced to a mere consciousness navigating an endless series of identical rooms? Physical and mental exhaustion is overwhelming, urging me to simply stop moving and accept my fate. However, as I teeter on the edge of giving up, I spot a door that looks different than the rest. It's another metal door, like the one I saw earlier, but this one has a sign on it painted in red, displaying someone running. Cautiously, I open the door and peer through the doorway. It's a long hallway that ends with a door. The hallway is unlike anything I've seen so far in this place. Fluorescent lights overhead illuminate the space. The hallway seems long, perhaps about 100 feet, but the distance is hard to gauge accurately in my disoriented state. The door at the end stands out dramatically from all the other doors I've encountered. This one is wooden with a rich, deep brown color. A brass doorknob gleams in the artificial light, drawing my focus like a beacon. My heart pounds in my chest, not just from fear or exhaustion, but also from a renewed sense of hope. Could this be an exit? A way out of this never-ending cycle of rooms? Drawing on the adrenaline that floods my system, I run faster than I ever thought possible. My breaths are shallow and rapid, each inhalation a mix of the hallway's sterile air and the lingering coldness trailing behind me. I sense that the entity is mere steps away, its proximity almost palpable. The floor seems to vibrate with the impact of its footsteps, resonating with an urgency that matches my own. As I near the door, an impulse takes over me. I have to see it, whatever it is that's been stalking me. Skidding to a halt just before I reach the door, I whip around to face my pursuer. What I see defies explanation. The entity is an amorphous mass, a swirling vortex of shadows that seem to absorb the light around it. It has no defined shape, no discernible features. It's as if someone ripped a hole in the fabric of reality and filled it with darkness. Despite its lack of eyes, I feel it looking at me, analyzing me. The atmosphere becomes denser, saturated with a menace that seems to radiate from the entity. A cold wind emanates from it, chilling me to my core, as if it's drawing the heat from the room and from my body. But strangely, it doesn't advance. It hovers there, just feet away, as if waiting for me to make the next move. I turn from the entity and lunge for the door. I grab the brass knob, feeling its cold metal against my palm, and fling it open. Whatever awaits me on the other side has to be better than the nightmare I'm leaving behind. I take a moment to absorb my surroundings. This room stands in contrast to the drab, almost lifeless ones I've been navigating. The walls are covered with intricate designs, a mix of geometrical patterns and abstract shapes bathed in a soft golden light emanating from an unseen source. I can't help but feel that someone or something crafted this space with intention. The light seems to give the room a gentle warmth, in both a literal and emotional sense that I haven't felt in what feels like an eternity. What captures my attention the most is the door on the opposite wall. It's ornate, framed with carvings that form symbols and writing I don't recognize. The door itself is made of what appears to be dark, polished wood, and the knob is a complex, antique-looking piece of metalwork. My gut tells me this door is significant, perhaps a final exit or a gateway to something completely different. The door I just came through is as silent as a tomb. I press my ear against it, half expecting to hear the footsteps. Instead, there's nothing but an unsettling quiet. Is the entity still on the other side, biding its time, or have I successfully left it behind? The uncertainty gnaws at me, but I shake it off. Lingering on such thoughts is a luxury I can't afford. Seems to breathe new life into me. My body aches. My mind teeters on the edge of exhaustion. But this new environment stirs something within me. Hope. I square my shoulders, taking a final glance back at the door I entered, before pivoting toward the unknown that lies ahead. Inhaling deeply, I make my way to the ornate door. My hand trembles slightly as I grasp the complex metal knob, taking a moment to brace myself for whatever awaits on the other side. It could be freedom. It could be another nightmare. Regardless, I'm ready, or as ready as I can be. I turn the knob and step through, leaving behind the suffocating maze and the entity that haunted it. I step through the door and almost lose my footing. My eyes blink several times as they try to adjust to the abrupt change in lighting. I'm back in the original room in the abandoned building where my nightmare began. The walls are there, dirty and showing signs of wear, covered in peeling paint that has seen better days. The graffiti on the walls is as vivid as I remember. The broken chair still sits in the corner. My eyes scan every inch of the room, not so much out of curiosity, but from a newfound sense of caution. Everything looks as it was when I first walked in, the same layout down to the smallest detail. Except for one glaring absence, the door that led me into the maze is gone. There's no sign that it was ever there. It's as if the door and the twisted reality behind it never existed. How is this possible? Disoriented and shaky, I burst through the door and out of the building. The sky overhead is overcast, a blanket of gray clouds that seems both familiar and foreign at the same time. The sounds of the city, cars honking, people talking, the distant wail of a siren surround me. Normally these sounds are just background noise. Now they feel jarring, as though I'm hearing them for the first time. I fumble in my pocket and pull out my phone. The screen lights up and the date displayed at the top stops me in my tracks. It's been 3 weeks since I first stepped into that building. 3 whole weeks. My mind races, tumbling over itself as I try to grasp the implications of this lost time. I'm gripped by a sudden nauseating sense of dislocation. It's like I've been yanked out of one timeline and thrown into another. My phone buzzes, drawing my attention to several notifications, missed calls, and unread messages. They're probably from friends, family, maybe even work. All of them likely wondering where I've been. The sight of these notifications makes my stomach churn. I can't bring myself to tap on them, to dive into those messages and confront the world I left behind. Not yet, anyway. It feels like opening them would make all of this irrevocably real, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Life after that place feels like living in a parallel reality. Externally, everything seems to resume its natural course. I go back to my job, sitting at a desk surrounded by colleagues who have no idea what I've been through. The keyboard beneath my fingers is real. The screen in front of me displays familiar programs, and the aroma of coffee fills the I attend social gatherings, hugging friends and family who express relief at my sudden disappearance and equally abrupt return. During these times, I even manage to feel genuine moments of happiness, catching myself laughing at jokes or engrossed in a movie. But internally, something is different. An undercurrent of unease threads through my daily life. The sense of being watched persists, like a tickle on the back of my neck that won't go away. When I walk down hallways or pass through doors, my muscles tense up, almost as if preparing to find that I've once again been thrust into a world of endless, twisted corridors. The sensation is unsettling, like living with a ghost only I can perceive. Then there are the nights. They are the worst. Lying in the darkness of my bedroom, I sometimes hear faint footsteps. Each step is a reverberation from that other place, pulling me back into a state of high alert. I get up, compelled to inspect my home, half expecting to see that ominous door tucked away in a closet or lurking behind a curtain. But of course, there is nothing. My search only yields nothing. To make sense of what happened, I dive into any source that might offer an explanation. Websites, books, scientific papers, discussions on forums about parallel dimensions, psychological phenomena, and even supernatural occurrences. I scour them all. Yet none of the theories align with what I've experienced. They are either too simplistic or too outrageous, none capturing the raw dread, the intricate details, and the inexplicable twists of reality that defined my time there. Is like carrying an unsolvable puzzle within me. Was it a mental breakdown, a tear in the fabric of reality, or something else entirely? I don't know, and the lack of answers, the absence of a rational explanation, keeps the experience alive like an ember that refuses to be snuffed out.